You know what was cool? The outdoor game. That was pretty cool. But don't take my word for it. We've got Locked On Red Wings to talk about their side of the experience, as well as can their team make the playoffs? All of that coming up on today's crossover edition of Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Now, got a bit of a special one today. You'll notice that the background is not Blue Jackets blue. It is Locked On Green. So we're doing a squadcast today, crossover episode. I was lucky enough to be at the outdoor game on Saturday, and so was one half of Locked On Red Wings, Brian Fisher. So I thought, hey, let's see how Red Wings fans felt about the game, how Brian's experience at the shoe was, and we got Scotty Bentley here as well to be jealous, I guess, that he didn't get to be there. So I'll add these guys into the studio. Brian, Scotty, how was the game from your side of things? Because I imagine frustrating.
Well, I think Scott can still provide a really interesting perspective because he got to watch the broadcast, and a lot of there was a lot of poor things said about that broadcast that you and I, Jay, as you know, those privileged enough to be at the shoe for the
elite
game
of the elite,
did not
Privileged
have to
90,000
experience.
people,
We weren't one of the poor people like Scott who couldn't go to the hockey game.
Thanks, dude.
No problem, dude. But I mean, outside, Scotty and I talked about it yesterday. We recapped the game as Red Wings fans, right? Outside of the controversy at the end of the game, I thought the game as a whole was a lot of fun, and I thought that it was largely a success for the NHL, at least in terms of the in-arena experience. Now, Scott, you might have a differing opinion here based on what you had to endure watching. I mean, from what I understand, they put off the start of the game for an SEC basketball game, and that's why I'm standing there watching the players skate in circles around the center faceoff circle and then not drop the puck.
Yeah, it was a good game. If you even care, I mean, it was a good game. There was a buzzer beater. It was kind of electric, yeah. But correct, they did push off the start of the game for SEC basketball. The broadcast was. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. The broadcast was not good, and I think that it was something that Red Wings fans really kind of focused in on because they just got a lot of like factual information wrong, and it's like, okay, like that's super avoidable and super easy to not have happen. But I think both fan bases kind of held hands over the production value. Not that, it's ESPN, the graphics are great, the camera works great, whatever, but like we're watching an adorable dog. I'm not a dog hater, okay? Love dogs, but we're watching
dog hater, Scotty Bentley, we know.
Right. We are literally watching a beautiful golden retriever instead of a play happening on the ice mid-game. Like it's not like it was a timeout or whatever. Like they literally are cutting to Kirk Herbstreit's dog while there's a play going on. It was really wild, but I think all in all, the product on the ice really made up for all of that there until the end. Obviously, there's the controversy where, on different sides of the aisle in terms of the beneficiaries from that. I think most people are kind of in agreement that something was missed, but in general, I think this was still a win for the NHL to be able to nationally broadcast this right after the Four Nations, which was a huge success. I think this was, it being a close competitive hockey game was probably all they could ask for.
Right, and I want to get back to, Jay, to the game experience in a second, but I do want to ask you your opinion as a Blue Jackets fan, right, who Scotty put, the beneficiary of the non-call. When you watch that happen live versus also including when you saw the replay, like, did you think it was like a missed non-call? Did you think it was kind of an immediate middle gray area? Or Do you think that it was not a penalty at all and that the Blue Jackets got a justified goal?
Oh no, it was fully a penalty. It was
Okay.
fully a penalty. I think my exact words were, as I watched the play and then the goal, I was like, "Oh, Justin Danforth definitely did crime there." Were my exact words to my friend who was sitting next to me. And then obviously they kind of congregated at center ice after the goal. Dylan Larkin, furious, justifiably so, I think. On replay, I can see it feels a little bit more gray actually on replay because you can see that it's, you obviously, yes, you have to be in control of your own stick at all times. Edmondson does lift Danforth's stick and then Danforth finishes the job. I think having I don't remember who the other player was, number 20 in for Detroit, getting kind of
Johansson.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think that quote unquote muddied the waters as well a little bit. You've got 3 players kind of all tangled up, 3 sticks flying around. I can see why the refs would struggle with that. On the flip side, I don't think it's a reviewable call. If it had been goalie interference, sure. And also we talked about this a little bit, like kind of off mic as well. How many times and I'm not suggesting that this only happens to Blue Jackets games, but like how many times have Blue Jackets specifically been interfered with, have missed calls, the game-winning goal is scored. And similarly, like Red Wings, you cannot tell me that a single Detroit Red Wings game has never been decided by a missed call on their team, right? Like
it happens to everyone.
Yeah. And I said this on the show all the time. This is not, I saw someone saying that they rigged it for Columbus because it was, it was at the shoe and it was Gaudreau night. And I'm like, have you seen an NHL ref? They could not rig their way out of a paper bag. It's just incompetence, guys. I promise. Like it's not some grand conspiracy. They're just bad at their jobs.
I promise you, they just suck, man.
Genuinely, it's just the jobs. I don't know what to tell you. It's not them sitting here being like, we need to make sure that Columbus wins this game.
And I think you have an interesting perspective too, Jay, because obviously if people can't tell from your accent, you're from the UK, right? You're a Columbus Blue Jackets fan that lives overseas. So you had to come to, and I'm very sorry that you had to come to Ohio of all places to watch a hockey game live. But I want to know what your perspective is as a European, when you come to a stadium like the Shoe and see a game there. What was your experience like?
Oh, I thought it ruled. Like, hockey is really my only sport, first of all. Like, I know that soccer is the big thing here, and that's all, whenever I talk to European NHL players, all they want to talk about is Manchester United, which is very funny. But, like, I don't follow soccer at all. I don't really go to games. I don't watch a lot of games. Like, I've been to a couple of baseball games I went to a couple of baseball games when I was in Minneapolis last summer. Like, this was my first time, I think, in, like, an actual football stadium. I can see the appeal. I genuinely can. Like, there's just something about having approximately 1 billion people really, really hyped about one thing, right? Like, I get the appeal. I do. It felt very much like Major League, like soccer in the UK. Like, it felt very much like that energy. The chanting's not as good. We do kind of like.
No, you know what? Credit where credit's due. You lot figured that out. All right. You have absolutely, that is been my take for years. Like genuinely, you guys figured that one out. Yeah. There's
an incredible tweet that I think about a lot. That's like, American chanting is just kind of defense. And then English chanting is, all right, everyone, I've prepared a chant about the opposing goalie's drunk driving charge to the tune of third loon. I'll count us in. And like, that's the difference.
And everyone just picks up on it.
It's really fun.
I will say
in European hockey as well, which is again really fun. But
the best chanting in North America is college hockey. College hockey, they get ruthless. Oh, they get ruthless.
Well, they also have like there's cool niche things in college hockey. I know for Big Ten hockey, they do like anytime the PA announcer says anything, you get the thank you like from the crowd, and you get like people yell halftime at the 10-minute mark in the second period. Like you get like fun stuff like that in college hockey for sure.
Where you can tell there's a lot of alcohol flowing.
Stupid and also fun is the thing, which like is my favorite way to be. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the experience of the outdoor game, and I want to ask a little bit more about kind of the broadcast as well. So we'll take a quick break. And then when we get back, we'll talk about the ongoing frustrations with national broadcasts, because I feel like you guys might feel basically the same way that I do. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings. First, though, I'm going to tell you guys about Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. They're one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller for longer. I am a gremlin person, so I love that they provide just full bags of pistachios without the shells, which means I can eat them like 14 at a time. I don't have to sit there and try and crack open every one. And sometimes they don't want to open. And then I have to like smash them on my desk like some kind of gorilla. It's really not cool. But with Wonderful Pistachios, I can just buy them without the shells on. And I think that's awesome. So if you're a gremlin person like me, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, we are back with this Squadcast episode of Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings. I'm Jay Foster. I've got Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley with me here. I wanted to kind of bring back to something that you talked about earlier, Scotty, with the broadcast and like inaccuracies in like basic information and things like that. Do you guys feel the same as me, where you're like, I'm like, man, we really could just have had the local guys on, and I get that it's a national game and they want to like. I don't even know who the play-by-play was. I guess that they want to bring those guys in to do it. But, like, I don't know about you. I much rather would have preferred to have Steve Mears and Jody Shelley just do the call, right? Like, it feels like that would have been so much better. They know the team. And this is what I find with every single game that is nationally televised. Honestly, sometimes I mute it and I will put just the CBJ radio broadcast on. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, no, that's common practice here. I mean, this is, we also get to talk about this from the perspective of being so blessed with one of the best broadcast teams in sports. Like, legitimately, seriously. That is, they do the Awful Announcing does the rankings every year, and The Athletic does broadcast rankings, and the Red Wings with Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond are consistently either 1 or 2 in every single one of those lists every single year. So like you don't have to you don't have to fight too hard for that case with this fan base for sure. I am positive that Red Wings fans wish that all 82 games were broadcasted by our own team. Yes.
I mean, it's Ken Daniels is so good that at times when the Red Wings aren't in the playoffs, they'll still tap him to play or to call like first round games, second round games for other series. I mean, this season, even the Amazon Prime games, right? There was a game earlier this season that Ken Daniels called between the Sharks and the Canucks on Amazon Prime because he is well regarded as one of the best TV guys in the league. And then when you get Mickey on there, they've been working together since the 90s? Since I was a baby.
Yeah, before I was born,
their chemistry is unparalleled. Like the other day, Mickey Redmond, he's in his 70s and he's like ranting and raving about how they're not dropping the puck, and I agree with him. They were messing. He was like, drop the puck, and Ken goes, "Why? You got somewhere to be?" And it's just like they have this like they have like almost a I don't care mentality. They do obviously care, but like they don't almost the professionalism it's clearly there, but they're like so friendly and jovial. It's like listening to two brothers bicker, kind of an energy that Scotty and I try to emulate too, where it's like we want it to feel like it's like two friends that are bickering. I mean, even during the break here, Scotty was insulting me via text. So I mean, it's just those broadcasts that they have. I mean, how could we not want them on national broadcasts? That being said, like having national broadcasts is so important to growing the game, and I think it is important that ESPN get these national broadcasts. But of course, we want our guys on those calls if possible. And I would prefer, as much as Ben Herbstreit was the name of the dog, as much as that dog is adorable, maybe stick to in between the plays when that happens. Maybe stop referencing.
Yeah.
Right. In play. Maybe stop incorrectly referencing the Ohio State-Michigan game from the day before. Maybe get the players who are on the teams correct. Maybe stop doing interviews with Ohio State people during the game. And I understand the game's at the Shoe, but there are no connections to Ohio State on either of these two teams other than the fact that the Blue Jackets play in the same city. There's no Ohio State alumni. It's all Michigan alum. So like a lot of the actual, from what I'm hearing this secondhand from like Scotty and what other people are saying on social media, maybe keep it a little bit more focused on what's happening. And like there were successes. Like I thought the whole handling of the Johnny Gaudreau stuff was excellent from both teams. The Red Wings coming out wearing Johnny Gaudreau jerseys from all the different iterations beforehand.
Like that got
was
me when
awesome.
I saw that. That was awesome.
Having the the Gaudreau's wives and children lead the walkout was excellent. Like that stuff like that, and all the when you were there, all the in-game stuff, 21 Pilots, that was all fun. Just some of the broadcast stuff, man. Some of the broadcast stuff, I felt like the ESPN continues to kind of fumble the bag. And I think part of that is also in the NHL because I feel like the NHL is almost always kind of out of touch with what their user base wants.
It feels like they're 3 to 4 years behind what they actually want, right? Like I've thought about this for a while. Is they're so close to getting it right. They get like 85% of the way there, and then they're like, "What if we do this?" And I'm like, "No, you were so close."
Remember when they signed Green Day to like a partnership? Was it Green Day, Scotty? And it was like a decade after Green Day was popular.
Correct,
Like, I like Green Day,
but Green Day lover, that does speak to me. But it's that kind of. I get that you want 21 Pilots there because they're like the Columbus band, but also,
I thought that made sense.
Yeah,
I
also, when was the last
idea.
time that you thought about 21 Pilots before Saturday?
Don't answer that, Brian. Don't answer that.
I thought their previous album.
I see you. No, don't even. Let's move on. I don't even want to know what his answer is to that question. Yes, so it was a good pick for the NHL. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. It could have been a lot worse. I wanted to talk as well a little bit, like just kind of you brought up the Gaudreau and everything. Like that aside, there really was a home run in the stadium. I thought I thought they did a really good job linking it back to like OSU and the Buckeyes while also making it like Blue Jacket centric. Like I don't know if you saw the cannon stickers that they put down after every Blue Jackets goal, emulating the Buckeye stickers that go on helmets. Similarly, I know that the Red Wings helmets were kind of a point of contention. I thought they were great. I loved the wings, but I also really like the football stripe down the middle. I thought that was again a fun callback to college football, right? Without Brian's making a face at me like he disagrees, but like I thought it was fun.
No, I mean we've talked about it a lot. I think initially I didn't like the helmets, and I actually liked them much more while watching the game on TV than I did like when they were showcasing them on Twitter or whatever. Like, I think that is something that the pageantry of the game, right? Like the lead up and the sweaters and the designs and whatnot, and how the ice looked, even like everything involved with that. I agree with you, Jay. I really think was kind of a home run for the NHL. The only blemish is literally just I guess the only two are the broadcast and then how the game ended. But like I think that it was. I think the marketing was good, which is something I couldn't even tell you the last time I said about the NHL. So,
right, the NHL this season, actually, can I say I have been pleasantly surprised with the NHL's marketing for a lot of this season. Like, not necessarily like as a whole, but I loved the commercial they did with all of the like Gen Z aged kids being like, obviously we're obsessed with screen time, and then Sidney Crosby coming out like kids these days. I thought that was hysterical. Like that to me felt like that's the best piece of marketing the NHL has done in maybe a decade. I agree.
I love that commercial.
I love that commercial. Well, and then the Four Nations in its own right is the best thing.
I'm so mad about how good the Four Nations was. Like I just got it on my show. I was so ready for that tournament to suck. And I was like, actually, this is some of the best hockey I've watched in a long time. God damn it.
Massive win.
Watching that tournament, I just kept thinking to myself, man, Zach Werenski's going to look really good in a winged wheel one day. He's just going to look excellent playing alongside Dylan Larkin.
You keep saying this, but like Dylan Larkin's going to look really good in Union Blue.
Yeah, dude. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you?
The funniest thing is if they get traded for each other, I think.
Oh my God, that would break my heart. I'm like, that would be
both cities would burn down.
Right.
and also the families would be furious. But
I just keep saying that to get under Jay's skin. Like, I will intentionally tweet it out, knowing that, not tagging Jay, but just knowing Jay's going to see it naturally and have to
so
message.
our friend JD Young of Locked On Sharks, every single time he sees it, he will either tag me in it or he will text me and be like, "Hey, Brian's talking smack again." Like, okay, so that's why I've started doing the man. Dylan Larkin's going to look really good as a Blue Jacket.
Right, you got to get it back. I thought I thought the uniforms, though, back to that, I thought the uniforms for both teams were fantastic, 10 out of 10. I do agree with Scotty. The helmets looked better in person. I do think that I could have done without the racing stripe down the middle. I wasn't a big fan of the racing stripe, but I did really like whether it be intentional or unintentional, the winged wheel on the side of the helmet kind of unintentionally being a reference to Michigan's helmets, because they call it's a winged helmet is what they call it. So I don't know if that was intentional or not. If it was intentional, great, kudos. That's great. Even if it's unintentional, that's still pretty sick. The Red Wings are going to wear those uniforms for the next 2 games, right, Scotty? I think 4th and the 6th, they're going to wear them at home against Carolina and Utah. So we'll get to see more of it. And, I mean, it was the second biggest outdoor game they've ever had, the second most attended outdoor game they've ever had, second only to University of Michigan at the Big House. Detroit again against the Maple Leafs back in 2014. Wings fans travel very well. But, I mean, how can you not argue it wasn't a massive success when you see, Columbus Blue Jackets? I've always thought the Blue Jackets, despite the unfortunate lack of success they've had as a franchise, I've always thought they've had a very passionate fan base.
Yeah.
So while I thought, great.
Finally getting rewarded for that, right?
I thought the choice in teams was a little odd at first, because I'm like, Blue Jackets and Wings don't really have a great rivalry. But like, after watching the game and being there, I was like, oh, this was a slam dunk. Like for the NHL, this had to have been a massive success in their books.
And I think it helped as well that at the beginning of the season, like, a couple of weeks after, obviously, the Blue Jackets traded Patrick Laine away, and then they lost Johnny Gaudreau. And I'm looking at this roster and I'm like, man, what is this team going to do this season? And you're like, okay, looking at the outdoor game, and I'm like, okay, the Red Wings, who have struggled to take that next step over the past handful of years, and the Blue Jackets, who might be one of the worst teams in NHL history playing an outdoor game, I was like, okay, this might be a miss. Obviously, I'm going to care deeply because that's my guys, and you guys are going to care because it's your guys. But it just fell so perfectly. Both of these teams playing meaningful hockey in March, which is kind of unheard of for both teams, I would say, for the past, 5-6 years, maybe. And fighting with each other potentially for a playoff spot as well. Like, it just fell so perfectly.
Yeah. I legitimately think that if both of these teams are able to play competitive hockey deep into the season, like going forward, that this that could even be the start of a new type of rivalry. Like, obviously I'm not saying it's ever going to be like Wings Avs or Wings Blackhawks or anything like that, but I really do think that based on the environment and based on what the game looked like, and again, the implications matter. If two teams don't play meaningful hockey against each other, it's very rarely a sustainable rivalry. And so
look at the Winter Classic.
Right. Exactly.
Chicago
so
stinks.
Right.
What were they thinking? I mean, I know what they were thinking, but
they were thinking Connor Bedard.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that having this and having, there's always Michigan and Ohio, it could be, it doesn't even have to be sports related. Like, the two of them are just gonna just go and bicker at each other no matter what. So I really do think that this is something that could, if both teams, which is an if for both sides of the coin there, but if both teams are able to keep this momentum going and kind of birth this new era for both teams where they're both playing competitive playoff caliber hockey, that it even could be a game that we look back and we go, wow, that was kind of the birth, missed call controversy, outdoor game, whatever. That was the birth of a type of rivalry for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I did think I want to move on. I want to talk about kind of the respective playoff pushes. Obviously, the trade deadline's coming up, things like that. But what if we just run the outdoor game back again next year, but this time we do it in Michigan and we just swap? every year for
I mean, I'm so down.
the rest of time. Like,
So down.
I think there's a lot of fans across the league that probably wouldn't be down for that, but hey,
no, but
I'm here for that.
I personally would like to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be fun, and I agree. As the teams, because they're kind of the Red Wings, I feel like are probably in theory a couple of years ahead of the Blue Jackets in terms of like a rebuild. You know, depending on how things go. The Blue
Right.
Jackets obviously are massively overperforming expectations this year.
Kirill Marchenko's so good.
I love him so much.
He's so good.
What a gamer. What a gamer.
I had no idea who he was before this season, and I'm like, this guy, he is like that is your guys' is probably centerpiece of your team going forward. Just from an outside perspective, I'm watching this team. Obviously, you have Zach Werenski on the blue line, and he's your team leader in points, a 60-point season. But I'm just thinking about for a core piece of your forwards, it's got to be Kirill Marchenko with how incredible he is.
Yeah. Well, like the story this season was, well, they can't replace Johnny Gaudreau. They're going to have to they can't replace him with an individual player. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Johnny Gaudreau and Kirill Marchenko are comparable players. But Kirill Marchenko might be the best winger that this team has seen since Rick Nash. He might end up being better than Rick Nash. Unlikely, but like,
yeah,
he's just so good. And I'm so glad that other teams and like other fan bases and people around the league are starting to pay attention to him, because
for sure.
This is his third season now, and his first season he had, I think, 21 goals and 4 assists, which was so fun and stupid.
4 assists?
Yeah, it was. He got like 18 goals before he got an assist on the season. It was so funny.
That's wild.
But like, just he's grown every single year, and now that he's kind of, people are realizing, oh, this guy's legit, is really, really fun to see. He's also, I believe, as of today, 4 weeks out of from a broken jaw. So
nice.
Wild that he's been playing at all, let alone playing the kind of hockey that he plays. But we're going to take another quick break, and then I want to talk about the Red Wings and their playoff push, because again, they're in the same place as the Blue Jackets. Essentially, they're holding down a wild card spot. They've got the Ottawa Senators breathing down their necks. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what both of these teams need to do to make the postseason for the first time in a minute. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings. Welcome back to this crossover edition of Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings. Both of our teams are in playoff position. I don't even remember the last time the Blue Jackets were in a playoff position in March. It might legitimately have been 2019. It might. I'm not super familiar with the Red Wings playing competitive hockey recently. I feel like it's probably been about as long since you guys have been playing meaningful hockey in the month of March.
They were last season. They came into March actually incredibly hot and then lost 7 games straight to completely
March
blow
was when
their
the collapse
lead.
happened last year. So
yeah, they had an 8-point lead, 6 or 8 point lead in the wild card, Scotty, and then they went on a 7-game losing streak and ultimately missed the playoffs. So
and then
that was the John Tortorella pulling the goalie.
Yeah, that was the final game of the season.
Break you guys' hearts. Yeah,
the Wings tied it, and Wings tied it with 3 seconds left, and because it happened so late in the game, Tortorella looked at the scoreboard, saw the Wings were going to lose, pulled his goalie, think they had a chance, not knowing the Wings had tied it up. The communication didn't happen in time. So, yeah, heartbreak. It was awful.
But you guys are in a good spot right now. The Todd McLellan hire was such a game changer, and obviously that's a bit of a fun story as well. He was supposed to be the head coach of the Blue Jackets, couldn't come to terms. Blue Jackets ended up going with Dean Everson. A couple of months into the season, Derek Lalonde not getting it done. Todd McLellan comes in, and the Red Wings suddenly, I'm like, oh, this is a good team. Actually, what the hell was Lalonde doing with them? Because again, like I thought, we didn't really talk about it, but the Red Wings were far and away the better team on the ice on Saturday.
Yeah, no, we talked about that a lot yesterday, right? Like that's it was a disappointing loss, and not only because of the controversy at the end, but because they probably I don't like using the word should have won, but like they were the superior team for a lot of that game. McClellan's been a huge difference maker and has been a huge game changer for the Wings, obviously, they've been one of the best teams in the NHL since he took over. For a while there, they had the best record in the NHL since he took over. I'm not sure after these two back-to-back losses if that's still the case, but either way, like they have way dug themselves out of the gutter, got themselves, as you mentioned, back into a playoff position, and now I think it's I mean, it's going to come down to a lot. We can get into the nitty-gritty whenever, but like they are really going to need to, like Friday, right? Like Friday's the deadline. What are they going to do? I think that this might be the first time in a while that both the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets at the same time could be looking at the deadline trying to acquire talent rather than shed it.
Yeah, I guess that's my question is what's the next step for you guys? Like, what piece do you need to add? Is it Patrick Kane finally gets a competent center for the first time in a decade and a half? Like, what's the piece that you guys need to add to really take the next step forward for the Red Wings?
Well, there's a lot the Wings could really do. I think the most realistic thing for the Red Wings to do is add depth, most notably on the blue line. Again, Max Bultman of the Athletic Detroit wrote that a great article after the Stadium Series game where he kind of talked about this as well. But the Red Wings are thin on the blue line. Edvinsson and Johansson, I think, are starting to show signs of wear and tear after their first full NHL season. It gets to those guys after a while. They're starting to get kind of worked in the defensive zone, and our third pair is borderline unplayable half the time. So they really need to get a competent third pair defenseman to kind of give McLellan a little bit of faith in that third pair to just overall help the lineup, because it's so hard to win hockey games when you're giving up 4 goals on 20 shots. And a couple of those goals, yeah, they were on Cam Talbot, right? We talked a little bit before we hit record. Cam Talbot hasn't had a great last couple games, but like this defensive structure of this hockey team is so reliant on good goaltending to keep them, to win them these games, right? Because they score. Scoring's not really a problem. Their top 2 lines score a bunch of goals, but they sometimes can't outscore their problems defensively. And so that's why acquiring defensive depth for me is like thing number 1 that they have to do. Because Cam Talbot and Alex Line can occasionally steal you games, but they can't consistently steal you games. They're a decent tandem, but they're not the best tandem in the NHL. They're not Andrei Vasilevsky, right? So acquiring defense is a big need for me. I wouldn't mind them making a huge splash at the deadline, but it would have to be for somebody with term. The Red Wings aren't in a position yet to spend a lot on somebody who's going to be here for 4 weeks, right? Like, it has to be, if you're going to spend a lot of capital at the deadline, it's got to be for somebody with term already. And there's been a lot of rumors circulating around Dylan Cousins in the past few weeks. I think he'd be a great fit here. I think he'd be that center you were talking about, Jay. Slot right in between Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat. Big body, has a lot of powerful attributes. He's locked up. He's only 23 years old. The only question mark is his production, but he's shown he can score 30 goals. I think that playing between Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat will surely help his production pick back up again.
It won't hurt, yeah.
Right. So I think that those are the 2 options. The one thing I would not do is sell off a lot of, not sell off assets, but, trade a lot of your draft picks and your prospects for somebody who's only going to be here for 4 weeks, right? Either a depth move or somebody who's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Brian said. We've talked about that a lot over on Locked On Wings. Jay, I want to throw that question back to you because the way Columbus is constructed is so fascinating. Like they feel like such a glass cannon type of team where it's like they, Brian mentions outscoring their problems. Might not be a team in hockey that's outscored their problems for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So talk about, their approach at the deadline. If they are to acquire talent, I mean, do you lean into it more and you just go, screw it, we're just going to get even more offense? Or do you think they do approach the deadline as an opportunity to improve the defensive side of the puck?
Yeah, it's been such a roller coaster this season because at first I was like, okay, the team's going to be bad. Sell off everything with a pulse by the deadline. And then I'm like, oh, okay, they're being kind of competitive. And obviously, like, you look at how this team has rallied around losing Gaudreau, and I'm like, how do you trade a guy from that room if he was here last year, right? Like, you talk about Sean Corrali, would probably have been available. He might still be available depending on what's happening. Ivan Provorov was kind of the big trade piece plan, and he might still be on the move if someone, goes ahead and offers a stupid package for him. But like, I was like, okay, how do you see what you have with this team, right? I don't think you need to add much. And also, Boone Jenner missed the Stadium Series was on his 4th game of the season. He's only been back playing for like a week. They're looking at him like a deadline addition, right? Because that's, to me, Boone Jenner is the perfect deadline acquisition. He is a middle 6 winger that can throw the body around, wins face-offs, plays exactly the kind of hockey that GMs love to acquire at the deadline. Sean Monahan, going to be back in a couple of weeks. Igor Chinikov potentially back tonight against the Lightning. He's leaning towards playing as of the time of recording this, which is about 8 p.m. on Monday night. Like, they're going to get guys back without having to give anything up, right? They're kind of bolstering from within. I still think they maybe go out and pick up. Like, I was looking at them to maybe pick up Gus Nyquist. I thought he would have been a perfect fit in Columbus. Red Wings legend Gus Nyquist. We
alumni
love
of both teams
on this show. Obviously, he went to Minnesota, but like, that's the kind of addition that I'm looking at. Is you want to, again, just kind of, you want to tweak. You want to give the team a little bit more depth. Their top 2 lines are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and really their top 1 line since Monahan went out. Like, Ken Johnson is doing his best to keep that second line afloat, but with Sillinger out injured, and that's another guy they're going to get back, right? So there's a lot of we need to see what we have in terms of injured players coming back before we decide whether we want to add. But yeah, I think for the most part, you see how far this team can go, because 6 months ago, this team was basically dead in the water, right?
Yeah.
And now they're 4 points away from second in the Metro, because the Metro division is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So I could see them making again, kind of similar to the Red Wings, actually, is they've talked about if they can add a young player with term, Owen Power, potentially available from the Buffalo Sabres, while we're talking about how they're selling off everything with a pulse. Like, if you can get a guy like that, and then you run your top 4 of Zach Werenski, Dante Fabro, Denton Matejchuk, and Owen Power for the next 10 years.
It really feels like everyone's available from Buffalo, honestly.
Well, yeah, because it's March and everyone's available from Buffalo, like Fork Founding Kitchen. And also, Buffalo's really the only team in the East that's kind of out of it.
Yeah,
right?
they're the only team that's just like straight up admitted, like, yeah, it's over.
Yeah. Pittsburgh is kind of falling out of it. Like, the Islanders should be selling, but won't, because Lou Lamoriello is going to do what Lou Lamoriello does. Like, the East is
going to Lou.
But yeah, they'll either add like a depth piece or a young player with term. Kind of like, honestly, the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings might be competing for the same pieces, which will be interesting.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Again, we're playing meaningful hockey in March. What's not to love about this, right?
Absolutely.
It'll be fun. We might end up seeing you guys. Again, I'm going to knock on wood, because I can only use my hockey powers for evil. We might see you guys in the playoffs.
I would endorse that if it meant a playoff spot.
For real, man. For real.
But I think that's kind of all we've got for you guys today. If people want to, keep up with the Red Wings, I don't know that a lot of my fan base wants to do that, but hey, Brian and Scotty rule, so you should go check out Locked On Red Wings. Where can they find you guys and your show?
You can check us out on whatever the app is called now, X. LO_Red Wings, I believe.
Oh, he nailed it.
Bang.
Fantastic.
Him. We got Brian Fisher, LORW. That one's written down. It's not as impressive. And then mine's at Bentley Scotty. That's all of our socials. I also, if you're randomly a Detroit Tigers fan, I host that show. So Locked On Tigers. Yeah, Jay, I think that's everything for us. So now, yeah, you plug your work.
Yeah, no, I plug my stuff. You can find me everywhere you get Locked On Red Wings. Usually I have a bit where I'm like, I can't in good conscience recommend that people pay attention to the Blue Jackets, but actually I think more people should pay attention to the Blue Jackets. We're a lot of fun this year. So you can find us wherever you get Locked On Red Wings. On Twitter, we are on LO_Blue Jacket. I'm at _ Jacob Foster, JAKOB FORSTER. We both have games tonight. The Red Wings are taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. The Blue Jackets are taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So tomorrow's episode for me will be breaking down that game. Brian and Scotty will be breaking down, hopefully, a win over the Carolina Hurricanes. I think that would be
hope so.
useful for us. But until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Red Wings your first listen of the day every single day. Both shows available everywhere you can find your podcast and over on YouTube. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.